Hello, welcome to Bible study. Are you all so excited? It's using the wrong camera. But anyway, who cares? Not a big deal. Okay, today, folks, children, my friends, we are looking at Genesis. We're supposed to look at chapters 1 through 24, but there is so much that happens in Genesis that I think we need to maybe break it into chunks, because to talk about Genesis 1 through 24 it reviews the creation of the world, and then it also reviews Noah and the flood, and then it also reviews I am only halfway through this. I am at chapter 12. I'm only on Abraham. And then it sounds like the rest of 1 through 24, is talking about Abraham and like his kids. So anyway, I'm going to talk about probably Genesis 1 through 12 today, and you're all just going to have to deal with it. So, okay, so doing Bible study, we're looking at the Bible through the lens of, what if it was just a book, right? What if this is just like somebody wrote down a story, right? Somebody, they like to say that Moses wrote it, so whatever. Okay, well, so Moses was just like, I'm gonna write a little story, right? And so Moses was like, the creation of the world, right? And he writes this story, and looking at it from the lens of, what if it was just a book that somebody wrote, versus believing that it is the inerrant word of God that we believe, because, I don't know, later somebody says that it is. What if it was just a story? So we start Genesis, like 1 through 3 is the creation of the world. And, my first question being, what was God doing before he created the world? Was he just hanging out? He's just chilling with his buddies, golfing. I don't know. What were they doing? He and the other gods hanging out. And he was like, I think we need a world, right? And so he was like, poof, here's water, here's sky, right? And he takes 6 days to create things, and then rests on the seventh day. I have a lot of questions about those first 6 days, but we don't have time to go into all of that. I will say something that I highlighted it straight off the bat is, because they have decided that the Bible is God's inerrant word. There are no mistakes. Every single line in the Bible proves something, tells us something. Every single verse I will tell you, there is so much explanation for these verses. Like, what does this mean? So, because verse 1 says, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth, and we assume that this is the word of God, that this is the truth, that already the authors here are the authors of this study Bible that I think I've shared before. I'm doing the King James Version study Bible, and already they're like, okay, so we assume that this is the word of God. Everything in here is the truth. And therefore, this verse refutes atheism, pantheism, polytheism, and evolution. Their only evidence here that atheism is incorrect, right? That there's no God, right? Those folks that believe that there's no God, those folks that believe that there's many gods, evolution, all disproven by this one line that says God created the earth, because we already are assuming that this is the truth. This is the fact. This is fact. If this is fact, then this verse proves it. That is called circular reasoning, right? Somewhere in this book, it says, this is fact, this is truth. And then because of that, this first line proves that God is real, that there's only one God, that this is. Okay. That's verse 1. This is why I haven't made it to chapter 24, because verse 1, and I'm just like, I spend a lot of time on it. And this is because this is what has happened, right? They folks who have decided that this is the word of God and this is all fact, this is all truth, take every line, every single line, and they read so much into it. They're like, this is what this means. Biblical account of creation clearly indicates that God created the world in 6 literal days, because it says it in this book. It's 6 days. Evolution can't be true because God created it in this particular order. Versus, it's like, okay, if we just read this as a story, I've heard lots of creation stories, right? That, like, especially if I'm writing this book, because we do know the book, these books, right, is a culmination of a lot of books, was written a very, very long time ago. And we didn't have information about dinosaurs and the science that we have now. And so when they're looking back, they're like, okay, you know, this makes sense, right? That God put this world together and here's an order, but they didn't even really think about the order. In fact, on day 6, it says that he created man. And then on day 7, he's like, I've got all these things to be taken care of, and it's too bad that I don't have man to take care of it. And then we skip the fact that he creates man again. Day 6, he created man. Day 7, he's also creating man. Okay, whatever. You know, we don't need to question that. That's fine. So I got a lot. There's so much going on in Genesis, right? So God creates the world, lots of questions there, whatever. And then he's like, here's a human. I create a human. This human needs a partner, creates another human. And then he creates a beautiful garden for them to live their lives in. And he puts all of these trees. And then in the middle of this garden, for his very new humans who've only existed for one day on this planet, he's like, so there's all these trees. Here's 2 trees that don't touch these. Don't touch these trees. They will kill you. Kill you. You will die. You will have death happen to you if you touch these trees. And they're like, okay, right. So I don't know how long they're going about their lives before the serpent contacts Eve and is like, oh, did you know that actually you won't die if you eat from this tree? Like, you actually won't die. You will just know the difference between good and evil. Your eyes will be opened, the serpent says. And Eve is like, really? Okay, that's very interesting. Thanks, serpent. And so she has a bite. She gives Adam a bite. And in fact, who is correct? They don't die. They have their eyes opened, do good and evil. So who's the one who lied here? Turns out it was God. And it's interesting, right? Because this is obviously written for you to believe that to question is sinful, right? And that God has some plan for you that is more important than him telling the truth to you. Why does he gotta lie? I don't know. Why didn't he just say, hey, don't touch this. Your eyes will be open to good and evil. And you know what? That's gonna fucking suck, because you will suffer greatly for generations when that happens, and you are much happier the way that you are now. I don't know, right? But then they have a choice. They can make a choice. Do I want that, or do I want to live in ignorance and bliss, right? So anyway, serpent didn't lie. Serpent was like, guess what? Actually, God's not telling the truth. You're not going to die. So I don't know. You know, he doesn't even say you have to eat from the fruit. He's just like, just letting you know. And so then God comes around, and now they're like, oh God, I'm naked, right? So they hide themselves. And God comes around. Adam and Eve, where are you? They're not named Adam and Eve yet, I don't think yet, but they're like, oh, we're naked, don't see us. And then Adam's like, Eve gave me a fruit. Totally blames it on Eve immediately. And then God punishes them for generations. he says to Eve that her sorrow will be greatly multiplied, and conception, right? So the idea of this is that now conception and the birthing process are going to be horribly painful, right? Not just for Eve, but for all of women, all of uterus bearing humans, whoever is giving birth. So painful, right? That's the punishment. And then I don't know if this is meant to be punishment. I don't know. And thy desire shall be to thy husband. So it's like punishing that she's going to desire her husband anyway, I guess, even if it's painful. And then it says, he shall rule over thee. Come on. Who's writing this? Moses. Moses was like, my freaking wife never wants to listen to me. I'm going to write this story that I'm going to be like, see, God said, I rule over you. You have to listen to everything I said. That's what I picture. He's like, listen, this woman won't listen to me. I better put it in a Bible. So then we go on, right? Punishment for generations. Adam and Eve are cursed, kicked out into the world, right? And again, we're on chapter 4. We're nowhere near 24. This is where we're gonna have to take it a little slower than I thought. Maybe later we'll be able to mash some things together. But Genesis is just so full of things. And then they have Cain and Abel, right? And this is one of my favorite lines. This is how they describe Adam and Eve had sex. From that sex, they conceived a child and then birthed that child. Adam knew Eve, his wife. Apparently, to know someone is to sleep with them, I guess. I'm assuming, having sex. And she conceived and bare Cain and said, I have gotten a man from the Lord. So anyway, I just thought that was funny. But so she has Adam. I'm sorry. So they have Cain and Abel, and then here is another shitty thing that God does. Okay, so, and then I'll probably end it here. I haven't gotten very far. I don't know. We're on chapter 4. I might have to meet again maybe sometime this week. I'll figure that out. Okay. They have Cain and Abel. We skip to the part where Cain is a tiller of the ground, so he's like a farmer, and Abel is a keeper of sheep. Cool. We've got our jobs. This is what we do in the world. And so they're like, we adore God, and so we shall bring him sacrifices. And Cain, as a farmer, brings God some fruit and some vegetables. Abel, as a sheep herder, brings him some sheep, which is a blood sacrifice. And God's like, I only respect Abel's. Cain, not good enough. Cain, not good enough. Your fruit and vegetables, your sacrifice is shit. Abel, lovely, because apparently blood sacrifices are better, more respectable. Yeah, so it's like, no, thank you, Cain. I don't accept that. And then all of a sudden, I don't know. I apparently we're missing some things here. You know, we know psychology. People don't generally just become murderers like right off the bat. I'm assuming there's been some other times when like, oh, Abel, you're such a good brother, right? And then Cain, not good enough, right? But this one puts him over the edge and he murders his brother, Abel. And that's really unfortunate. Cain, it's not a good way to handle things. And then Cain is then kicked out. He is cursed from the earth. And I think also, you know, the ground is going to be very difficult to farm now. So like Cain can't be a farmer or something, right? He's like, what is the worst thing that I could do to you? This thing that the only skill that you have, no, it won't work for you anymore. So get out. And I do agree with like, there should be some punishment for killing your brother. I mean, I think that's fair. Sends Cain out into the world. He's like, you are now banished, right? And then so Cain goes out into the world, and I guess I'll just I'll end this particular portion with So Cain dwells in the land of Nod, right? He's out there dwelling. I don't know what he's doing because he can't farm. And then chapter 4, verse 16, and Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and bare Enoch. Now, I will tell you, the authors, have looked in great detail at verses. There are paragraphs about verses. What does this mean? What does this really mean? Let's look at another verse and figure out what it means. There's nothing here about. Okay, we have Adam, we have Eve, and then we have Cain, and we have Abel. And then Cain kills Abel. So now we just have Adam and Eve and Cain. And Cain has been banished and knew his wife and had a kid. Okay. Now, again, I have no problem with this. I'm assuming there's other humans on the planet, right? There's just other humans. Cain gets banished. When he's dwelling in Nod, he's with other people. However, if you are telling me that there are no mistakes in the Bible, to the point where we are saying very specifically, these are facts. Adam and Eve are the only humans. Adam is the first human. Eve is the second human. Cain, then Abel. Who's his wife? Is it Eve? I don't think so. Where did this person come from? Have Adam and Eve been sprouting off children this whole time? Has she had a whole bunch of daughters that have been out living in the land of Nod, wherever Nod is? And why, if there is no questions here, this is only facts, why do we not have questions about who Cain's wife is? What is the explanation? What is your explanation for that? Okay. I think we should leave that here. We'll leave it at Cain, who is now wandering. I will try not to go into as much detail in the next couple of chapters, but can I avoid it? I don't know. I don't know that I can avoid it. So maybe we'll just do a lot of these. Because next we go into descendants, and it's honestly not as interesting. But then we get into and I like this Bible has like little chapter titles, right? So like Cain dwells in the land of Nod. That's actually a chapter title that they added to make it easier for me to know where we are, right? They said the curse of Cain. Cain dwells in Nod. And then we go into Lamech's, I'm sure I said that wrong, descendants, and then the birth of Seth, and then Adam's descendants, and chapter 5 is everybody's descendants, and then chapter 6 is man's wickedness. So exciting. Okay. Join me. We may kind of skip over 5, but I'll say that we're going through 5 through as much as we can do in less than 20 minutes. I will do my best to go quicker than I have. What do you say? What do you say about these chapters in Genesis? I like, okay, right? It seems to me like it is a bit of a parable, right? Like we got a lot of parables. A lot of like, I don't know, like there were a lot of stories that I was told when I was younger about things that were just kind of meant to summarize. Friday, I think my children's Bible is coming, and I really want to take a look at that because I feel like the children's Bible actually does a really good job of like, here's the story that they really meant for you to kind of hear. You're supposed to, and I don't agree with the lesson they're trying to give, right? But like whoever wrote this story was like, hey, like you're really supposed to obey God and obey your husband, right? You're not supposed to murder your brother. Blood sacrifices are better, definitely, than garden vegetables. What else do we learn, right? Like, what are the rules we're supposed to learn from this? I mean, that sounds about it, right? Like, we're just like this. Hey, listen, folks, this is what this person who wrote this book would like you to believe are the rules. And so they wrote a story, right? They're like, here, listen, God created the world. Very short story for a whole world creation, by the way. Like a lot of room for some details that are left out. Created the world, created humans, and said you shouldn't be curious, because when you're curious, you will now be punished for generations. So don't be curious. Don't question the word of the Lord. Be obedient, right? That's the whole thing in this whole thing. Be obedient, never question, obey constantly throughout Genesis. Okay, I am done. Give me your questions. Give me your feedback. I will talk to you all soon. I will schedule another one, so we will go over the next couple of chapters, and I will see you then. So excited.